As shadows grow long on the frostbitten Ardennes, the stories of valor and despair entwine in the bitter cold, echoing ancient lamentations through the barren trees. With every gust of wind, the chilling whispers of the past brush against the present, resonating with the memories of those who once walked these solemn grounds, soldiers caught in a relentless combat that transformed a picturesque landscape into a theater of misery and heroic sacrifice. Welcome back to Ghost Stories of the Battles, where we delve into the echoes of the past, exploring the specters of heroism and tragedy that haunt the sites of great conflict. This week, we turn our attention to a hauntingly beautiful yet desolate corner of Belgium, where the ghosts of the Ardennes have stories to tell, stories of bravery, desperation, and the frostbitten hope that survives long after the last shot has been fired. The Ardennes, known for its rolling hills and dense forests, bears an indelible scar from history. It is overshadowed by the dark legacy of the Battle of the Bulge. This desperate encounter in the winter of 1944 was marked by chaos and a fierce fight for survival as American forces found themselves trapped in a frozen hell. It was during those bitter days that courageous souls ventured into the icy abyss, risking their lives for their comrades and their beliefs. Many brave soldiers fell under the weight of gunfire and snow, leaving their spirits deeply intertwined with the very earth they fought to protect. Their sacrifices echo like a haunting refrain, a stark reminder of the horrors of war that still linger in the cool, crisp air. As snowflakes dance softly in the fading light, we are enveloped by the memories of those who fought and died in this unforgiving terrain. They stand as silent sentinels of history, their suffering etched into the fabric of the land, and their resolve whispering to us through the chill of the night. It is here, within the remnants of their undying loyalty, that we begin our solemn exploration of the supernatural. Today, we embark on a chilling journey through time, where past and present intertwine, revealing the sorrowful tales of those who linger long after their last breath. Our guide through this spectral landscape is a modern-day paranormal investigator who is drawn to this site of untold grief, seeking to uncover the truth behind the legends. This investigator, driven by a desire for connection and understanding, is not only on a quest to witness the remnants of the past, but also grapples with their personal grief, a journey that will lead them to confront the shadows of both the fallen soldiers and their own haunted heart. As we tread deeper into the frozen world of Ardennes, we will listen closely to the whispers of the wind, for they carry with them the tales of those who bravely marched into the unknown. Join us as we uncover the tragic narratives woven into the very snow beneath our feet, and allow the haunted echoes of the frozen patrol to guide us on a path neither forgotten nor forsaken. On a frigid December night towards the end of a year marked by unspeakable sacrifice, a light snow began to fall over the desolate landscape of the Ardennes forest. Trees stripped bare by winter stood like sentinel against the fleeting flicker of twilight. It was here that Sam Caldwell, a passionate paranormal investigator, found himself driven to uncover tales of valor and tragedy lingering in the frostbitten silence. With a passion ignited by personal loss, the shadows of the past beckon him. Sam had always been fascinated by the stories whispered among the graves of fallen soldiers, the tales of duty and despair intertwined in his own experience of grief. He lost his younger brother, a soldier who had served in Iraq, in a war that felt distant but was painful in its resonance. The heartache created in death held a complex allure for Sam, propelling him through haunting landscapes and ghostly remnants, from abandoned battlefields to crumbling fortifications. It was this turbulent mixture of desolation and reverence, this connection to the fallen, which fueled his journey to the Ardennes. The night was particularly quiet, almost reverent, as though the earth itself was holding its breath. Sam had come to the Kaiserbaracke Crossroads, a storied site during World War II, where countless American soldiers battled against the relentless invasion of the German forces during the Battle of the Bulge. According to legend, a spectral patrol roamed these woods, the spirits of soldiers doomed for eternity to march through the snow, burdened by their heroic sacrifices. With a camera slung across his neck and a sense of determination resonating within him, Sam set out into the biting cold, eager to unravel the mysteries that lay hidden within the frosted trees. The forest welcomed him with an eerie stillness, and he knew that tonight would converge the past and present, offering him a glimpse into the lives of those who had fought and died in this unforgiving place. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the temperatures plummeted, biting at his exposed skin and warning him of the impending winter night. Pale starlight filtered through the skeletal branches above, casting long shadows that spilled like ink onto the ground. Each step crunching upon the fresh blanket of snow seemed to echo the footsteps of lost men who had once walked heroism searching for their courage, their comrades, and ultimately their way home. Sam stopped, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. A whisper tugged at the edges of his consciousness. For a fleeting moment, he thought he heard the faint clinking of dog tags and distant voices crying out for loved ones. Was it merely the wind, or something far more profound? Unlike many other investigators, Sam had always felt a deep empathy for those he sought. His motivation wasn't merely to capture evidence of the supernatural. He was here to connect with the souls of the fallen, to honor their memories and perhaps find solace for his own heart. As he set up his equipment, placing cameras strategically to capture any anomalous manifestations, an unnatural shiver wound its way through the air. Just then, the temperature dropped significantly, and he could see his breath forming clouds of vapor in the biting cold. The forest around him seemed to pulse with life, perhaps, the life of memories long since buried. "Show me your stories," he whispered into the silence. "I am here to listen." Almost immediately, the atmosphere intensified. Whispers grew louder, swirling around him, guiding him deeper along the narrow paths lined with shadows. With each careful step, Sam felt an overwhelming urge to follow the ethereal voices. The landscape twisted, and he found himself in a clearing he hadn't anticipated. The moon bathed the ground in a haunting silver glow, and the air vibrated with a long-forgotten tension. Suddenly, the figures appeared, silhouettes clothed in tattered uniforms emerging from the evergreen shadows. Their faces were obscured, blending seamlessly with the night, but Sam could feel the weight of their sorrow. Ghostly forms flickered in and out like candle flames fighting against the wind, each one lost in a loop of duty, a patrol forever on guard. Sam's breath caught in his throat. His heart pounded in rhythm with the spectral movement. He raised his camera, snapping photos in rapid succession, but each click felt like an intrusion upon their silent vigil. There were no requests to leave, no hostile energy, only the silent sorrow embedded within the soul of each soldier, weighed down by the inevitability of their sacrifices. As he gazed closer, he saw one figure detach from the group, a sergeant perhaps, with a face that seemed veiled in shadow, yet portrayed untold grief. Sam took a hesitant step forward, yearning to connect, to understand the weight that bound this specter to the land. The sergeant clutched tightly in his ghostly hand, a fist, holding onto a small object. "Tell me your story," Sam breathed, his voice reverent, breaking through the thrum of anguish surrounding him. The spectral soldier lifted his head then, revealing hollow eyes that seemed carved from deep, aching sorrow. In response, the sergeant opened his hand, revealing a blood-stained Christmas prayer card, its message, smeared slightly, still clear. It was a prayer for peace and strength, a plea issued during the most desperate of times. Sam's chest tightened as he recognized the heart behind the token, the weight of the loss encapsulated in this small fragment of life, a gift, perhaps, of memories lost or those still enduring. It was the last one, the sergeant's voice echoed, breaking the silence like the cracking of ice. Left behind in the snow, a reminder of hope that never came. At that moment, Sam felt an overwhelming rush of grief. Not just for the soldiers surrounding him, but also for his own brother their similar, yet vastly different sacrifices. The unfulfilled promises and the heart-wrenching absence twisted together in an emotional storm within Sam's heart. "Let me help you remember," he urged, feeling the urge to provide comfort. "Share your stories with me. Your valor should not fade into the frost." And in that sacred space, with the specters gathered around him, a connection blossomed, a mutual understanding of the frailty of life and the permanence of sacrifice. The air shimmered as time slipped away. The patrol ceased its wandering, drawn into the magnetic pull of shared grief. In that timeless moment, Sam acknowledged the depth of their fear and the courage they possessed. The soldiers were not merely vengeful spirits bound to the earth. They were noble beings forever etched in memory, representatives of countless stories waiting to be passed on to the living. He vowed to carry their tales forward, to give voice to the silent, to remember their struggles and honor their resolve. As dawn began to break over the horizon, painting the chill in hues of gold and pink, the soldiers started to fade back into the ether, their silhouettes dimming like the stars retreating before the morning light. The sergeant, however, lingered for a moment longer, locking eyes with Sam before his image dissolved completely. "Remember," came the final whisper, soft yet strong, the resonance of a spirit conveying the importance of memory, of honoring the lost. The frozen patrol of Ardennes was subsiding into the mist of dawn, and Sam stood alone amidst the ghostly echoes, changed in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. He had sought ghosts, but he had found healing instead, a reminder of the unbreakable bonds that tied life and death together, expressed through respect and remembrance. Sam returned to his car with a weight lifted from his chest. The stories of the frozen patrol would transcend this night. They would not be just tales of agony, but powerful testaments of resilience and sacrifice that he would honor moving forward. And as he glanced one last time at the forest cloaked in morning light, he made a silent vow to the spirits that lingered, treasuring their stories as they whispered through the winter air, as alive and enduring as the snows that fell over the hallowed ground. Private Eddie Miller clutched his rifle tightly as he crouched behind the thick tree trunk, the bitterness of the January wind seeping deep into his bones. Just 18, barely a man, he had been thrust into the chaotic embrace of war, the sharp crack of gunfire echoing in the distance, a song of death that thrummed in the air around him. The snow, once innocent and pure, now lay stained with the mingling warmth of blood and curling smoke, the ghosts of valor and fear woven tightly into the frigid landscape of the Ardennes. What had he signed up for? Only days ago, the bright-eyed dreams of glory and adventure evaporated under the harsh reality of battle. The biting cold pierced through the fabric of his uniform and settled into his skin. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the ground, and he felt his heart race as he glanced over his shoulder, desperate for his friends in this hellscape that had become their life. But they had become shadows, flickering and vanishing under the weight of chaos. That January night, with the icy wind whipping through the trees, Eddie was riddled with the profound dread that only someone in the very jaws of despair could feel. As the sounds of gunfire continued to rain upon the soldiers, he shut his eyes, inhaling the cold, bitter air, and sent a silent plea to the heavens. "Please, let me survive this." The world around Eddie unfolded in frantic movement. Soldiers scrambled over snowdrifts and frozen earth, their voices barely breaking through the din of gunfire. Each second felt like an eternity, the ticking clock of life reminding them of the warmth of their homes and the laughter of loved ones. As the chaos unfurled, Eddie caught sight of his best friend, Private Billy Thompson. Billy, with his easy grin and infectious laughter, had always been a beacon of hope. "Eddie," Billy shouted, his breath forming visible clouds against the chilling air, "we need to move now." As Eddie turned to comply, a sudden explosion rocked the very ground beneath them. Snow and dirt exploded in all directions, and the world turned into a cacophony of primal screams and muffled cries. Blinded by fear and noise, Eddie stumbled. He searched for Billy, but his best friend was Gonitho's familiar blue eyes swallowed by the fog of war. "Billy!" Eddie cried, but his voice was lost amid the chaotic symphony of battle, each call drowned by the anguished sounds surrounding them. The minutes slipped away, slipping through Eddie's fingers like grains of sand as he fought to remain grounded in reality. He clutched his rifle, trembling not from the cold, but from a deep-rooted fear of losing what little sanity he could still cling to in this carnage. Hours seemed to blend into one another, the celestial world of night falling upon them without warning. The cold seeped into every crevice of Eddie's being, wrapping tighter around him than a shroud. He could feel the panic building a brick wall inside his chest until it became unbearable. The shadows danced around him, interspersed with the flickering lights of artillery, and as the cold deepened around him, he could swear he felt a presence pulling him under into the depths of despair. Just when he thought hope had fled, he heard a soft whispering. Distant but clear, like an ethereal breeze weaving through the trees. "Eddie, Eddie." His heart stuttered. "Billy," he shouted again, the word laced with frantic desperation. The whisper became stronger, more insistent, guiding him deeper into the woods, away from the sounds of chaos. Eddie's instincts clashed violently with the urge to follow that ghostly voice, but something within compelled him. He rushed toward it, surrendering to its call, his heart pounding furiously against his ribcage. Each step felt heavier as he left behind the world of flesh and blood and crawled deeper toward the shadowy realm of the lost. The night was thick around him now, blanketing life's harsh realities with the freezing breath of the unknown. White flakes fell softly upon the earth, muffling all sounds, until it grew eerily silent. That silence was punctuated only by the sound of his ragged breathing. He came to a clearing, encircled by twisted trees marked by the scars of warchard and broken like the hearts of the men who fought here. Suddenly, figures appeared, distant silhouettes, wearing the heavy coats of soldiers from another time. Eddie was transfixed, recognizing them as part of the same patrol that once traversed this frozen landscape. They moved with purpose, yet they seemed trapped in a perpetual loop, roving like restless spirits bound to the earth. "Billy!" He pushed through the suffocating silence, his heart racing, but the shadows did not respond. Instead, the flickering lights in their eyes dimmed as their saddened faces turned toward him. Then Eddie saw a familiar figure emerging from the shadows. There was Billy, yet he seemed ethereal, becoming more solid as he neared. His deep blue eyes, once filled with mischievous spark, now held the pain of loss, the anguish of an unfulfilled mission. "I got lost." His voice was but a whisper, echoing through the stillness, "just like you." The realization hit Eddie hard. He was not just lost in the snow, but lost within himself, caught in the storm of grief and confusion. "We can find a way out," he said, grasping for hope as he stepped forward, instinctively reaching out toward his friend. Billy shook his head slowly, the edges of his form shimmering in and out of focus. "There is no way out for some of us," he whispered. "But you need to live. You must carry my memory." As the words settled into Eddie's heart, he felt the weight of reality crashing against him. The ghosts of the past surrounded him, each man a soldier caught in the web of sacrifice, painting a haunting tableau of lost potential and unrealized dreams. "Why?" Eddie asked, grief welling in his throat. "Why did this happen? Why did you leave me?" The ghostly soldiers turned their solemn faces toward him, the silence heavy with unsaid words. Billy stepped closer, his form beginning to fade, leaving only a faint shimmer behind. We fight for something greater. Remember user laughter, our dreams. Then he handed Eddie a small object from his coat, a blood-stained Christmas prayer card. Understanding washed over Eddie. In this moment, the ghosts were more than just phantoms of the past. They were reminders of the bonds formed amid the wild fury of life and death. He could honor them by sharing their stories, by allowing their memories to transcend beyond the cold, dark night. I will remember, he vowed, his voice trembling with emotion. I won't let you fade. Billy's gaze softened, and before Eddie's eyes, he began to dissolve back into the shadows from whence he came. Live for both of us, he murmured, the wind wrapping around the words. You carry me with you. With that, the icy silence fell heavy once more, but Eddie felt a strange warmth enveloping his heart, a flicker of hope amidst the sorrow. The frozen peace around him seemed less daunting, a distinct path illuminating through the darkness. He resolved to walk the line between the worlds, even as the specters of his past lingered, prepared to honor the fallen and share their stories, valiant warriors who fought and perished, forever lost to the Bulge. When dawn broke over the Ardennes, Eddie emerged from the woods a changed man with etched memories and a heavy yet hopeful heart. He would carry Billy with him always, a testament to bravery and sacrifice amidst the waves of chaos. The shadow of loss would never leave him, but he would ensure that it transformed into a flame of remembrancion that flickered brightly against the backdrop of grief. In honoring the fallen, he would defy the weight of despair and embrace the legacy of those who had come before. The journey wasn't over, it was merely beginning. As he looked out upon the frost-kissed landscape of the Ardennes, he felt their presence echo through time, their ghostly whispers forever intertwined with the winds of the past, a reminder that even in a world steeped in sorrow, the essence of courage and love remains eternal. As Eddie took his first steps into the chilling light of day, the echoes of his waking dreams still suffusing the air around him, we turn back to the winter of 1944, where a young GI, heart-pounding and full of fear, navigates the chaos that surrounds him in search of survival only to discover the truth behind the bonds woven in the heat of battle, forever sealing their fates amidst the snow-flecked chaos of war. As winter's grip tightened around the village of La Roche-en-Ardennes, Anouk Devry stood at her window, gazing out at the frost-draped landscape. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive, broken only by the occasional rustle of pine branches swaying in the cold gusts of wind. The remnants of battle lay in quiet testament around abandoned foxholes, frozen remnants of equipment, and an air steeped in sorrow echoing tales of sacrifice and loss. La Roche-en-Ardennes had transformed from a serene village into a haunting ground for both the living and the dead, the latter of whom had stories etched upon their faces, stories that Anouk felt compelled to uncover. With each passing day since the Allied victory weeks ago, she had been plagued by uneasy dreams filled with shadows of soldiers, their faces weary, their eyes reflecting a deep-seated despair. Though the war had moved on, the spirits of those who had perished seemed determined to remain, tethered to the tragic remnants of their mortal lives. Anouk herself was a child of this town, her lineage intertwined with the very soil soaked in the blood of countless brave souls. She had grown up listening to her grandfather's haunting recitations of those dark days in December 1944, tales punctuated by the echoes of rifle fire that had once shattered the peace of the winter nights. But now, as an adult, experiencing the collective grief firsthand had ignited a profound urgency within her, not just to remember, but to give voice to these whispers of the past. As she stepped beyond the threshold of her door, the cold air stung her cheeks, but there was a warmth radiating within her heart. Each breath drew in the icy crispness of the environment, an echo of the lives once lived within these lost moments. The villagers, too, had begun to re-emerge, their shadows slowly unfurling under the plastered roofs as they sought to reclaim their homes. Anok wandered through the outskirts of town, where the vestiges of the conflict had left their scars. Here, the remnants of the war were not merely historical, they were alive with the stories of the fallen. As she walked, she began to hear the soft whispers carried by the winter windswords that seemed to drift from the very earth beneath her feet. To hold the line, they seemed to say, to honor the call. Anok shivered, not from the cold but from the weight of their voices. With each step, she felt the presence of spectral soldiers, remnants of their final moments caught in an ephemeral loop, forever suffering the anguish of unfulfilled duty. The villagers said that sometimes, when the nights were especially still, the sounds of battle could be heard echoing through the valleys, the cries of men mixing with the rustle of levis whispers, not of lingering warriors but of their mourning comrades, the living recalling the lost. Anok reached a clearing in the woods near the Kaiserbaracke Crossroads, a site rich with history. A peculiar chill enveloped her, more intense than before, as if the very air crackled with electricity. Pressing deeper into the trees, she felt an irresistible pull, an urge to connect, not just with the past or rewrite the narrative that had been steeped in horror, but to discover a purpose. Through the dense undergrowth, shadows flickered just beyond her Viewa Solider, wrapped in a patina of frost, his eyes hollow yet filled with a pleading sorrow. Anok instinctively took a step back, but curiosity anchored her to the spot. "You seek us," the figure murmured, its voice the sound of dead leaves rustling underfoot. "You seek the truth of the fallen." He began to fade, only to be replaced by Another, a sergeant, commanding and yet weary, honor-driven yet burdened. Anok dared to take a step closer, her heart racing. "Who are you?" "I am Sergeant Jacobson," he replied, looking directly at her with a transparency that revealed the rawness of his pain. "We are the Frozen Patrol, our souls forever bound to these lands." Duty was unfulfilled, promises left to die. The winter strengthened. The shadows around her flickered momentarily before pits of silence resumed their hold. Anok could hear them clearly now, the low murmur of conversations that slipped through the veil between worlds. Whispers of courage and regret overlapped like a shadow quilt, stitched with desolation, courage to push through the despair of old scars. "And are you the only ones?" Anok found herself asking, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "For now," the sergeant's spectral tone tremored, "but many watched over us, and their grief remains our chains. We march nightly, guarding this place that only knows silence in its aftermath." The whispers never go away. They echo louder with every winter storm. With the weight of history pressing down on her, Anok felt tears prick her eyes. It was unbearable, the stories, the loss, the lingering shadow of grief tangled in time. "How can I help you?" she cried out, feeling overwhelmed by the depth of sadness that engulfed her. "Bear witness," Jacobson urged, energy wrapping around her like a ghostly embrace. "Tell our stories. Feel our sorrow. Acknowledge our presence. We are not forgotten if you remember." In that moment, Anok felt an unfathomable tie to these soldiers, not just as specters bound by tragedy, but as stories longing to transcend mortality. One spirit approached, close enough for the touch of cold metal, and a tattered emblem, a blood-stained Christmas prayer card, held between trembling fingers. "Our last wishes," Jacobson murmured. "Remember those we loved, those we did not save. Join us in our remembrance." Anok accepted the card, its fabric worn by time, feeling it pulse with a history she couldn't entirely grasp but knew to be profound. She closed her eyes as visions flooded her mind, images of soldiers, families, love letters never sent, dreams drowned within the chaos of gunfire. As she opened her eyes once more, she felt a surge of clarity. The burdens of duty were not hers to carry alone. They weighed down upon many hearts that had survived the war, left behind, struggling with shadows that were both familiar and foreign. With newfound resolve, Anok spoke into the silent abyss. "I promise to remember you to tell your tales, to honor your pain." She could feel the icy grip of their sorrow release slightly, a breath of relief floating through the chilly air. A spectral smile flickered across Jacobson's face as spectral soldiers began to gather, forming a semicircle around her, his camaraderie palpable. "Then we are free at last," he gestured, and she could sense the flickering of hope distilling among them all. The night wore on, the cold becoming familiar, an ally rather than an adversary, as whispers of gratitude filled the space the soldiers began to fade, and yet their presence lingered like an indelible imprint upon her soul. When dawn broke over La Roche Ardennes, it shone bright with possibility. Anok stood with the light illuminating her face, a brand new energy thrumming through her veins. She saw the town not as merely a witness to devastation, but as a hallowed ground for stories yet to be told. Determined, she vowed to encapsulate the essence of those brave souls, not with the sorrow that had initially clouded her spirit, but with pride, a bond forged between the living and the lost. Each breath now echoed with the whirring of the past, honoring the struggle for freedom that had wrapped around her heart. As she turned back toward home, the wind rustled through the trees, and she could have sworn, just for a moment, the whispers of soldiers were no longer plights of grief but joyous echoes of gratitude and a shared humanity. With each stride she took, she felt the weight of what they'd shared, a sacred trust beneath the frost of Ardennes, a legacy waiting to be born anew. With the past woven into the fabric of Anok's experience, the town began stitching its heart back together, threads of memory intertwining with a brighter future. We now fast forward to the present day, where a descendant of a soldier, visiting the hallowed grounds, stands at the precipice between remembrance and renewal, ready to face the specters of their heritage and reclaim whose stories have long faded into silence. The wind howled mournfully across the solemn grounds of the Ardennes, carrying with it whispers of history woven into the fabric of the earth. Emma stood at the edge of the cemetery, the low hum of the gathering crowd a distant murmur against the backdrop of towering trees, their branches heavy with frost. She felt out of place among the throngs of family members, veterans and dignitaries. Each of them was united by a shared bond, a deep-rooted connection to the sacrifices made during a bitter winter when time seemed frozen in the chaos of war. Emma's heart raced, not merely from nerves, but from the weight of legacy pressing down upon her shoulders. As the sunlight filtered through the clouds, casting a glow that seemed ethereal against the granite headstones, she could almost feel the presence of her ancestor, Private Daniel Hayes, who had fought valiantly in the Battle of the Bulge. Stories of his bravery and sacrifice were recounted at family gatherings like cherished heirlooms, but they had always felt just out of reach, stories of the past that belonged to someone else. Today, she hoped to bridge that gap, to connect with the spirit of a man she had never met but whose blood coursed through her veins. With each step forward, memories poured into her mind, memories draped in affection but stained by the grief of familial loss. The words of her grandmother echoed softly, a refrain of sacrifice, of honor, and above all, of duty. "You must remember them, Emma," her grandmother had said with glistening eyes. "They deserve to be remembered." Now, standing at the threshold of remembrance, Emma felt the enormity of that responsibility in her chest. She gazed at the expansive rows of white tombstones, each marked with names and dates that told the stories of lives cut short. The atmosphere was heavy with reverence and sorrow, and as the memorial service commenced, the scent of winter air mingled with that of fresh flowers laid at each grave. Emma clutched the small pendant around her neck, a locket that contained a faded photograph of Daniel, his youthful face set in determination, the same look of resolve she had seen echoed in her own reflection. With every passing moment, she was more convinced that the history of her family was more than just fragmented tales. It was a living tapestry, and she was a thread woven into its core. The memorial speaker began recounting the events of the winter of 1944, painting the scene of the valiant soldiers clashing against overwhelming odds in the Ardennes snow. Emma listened, enraptured yet unsettled. Each word seemed to reverberate within her tragedy, courage, sacrifice all intermingled in a way that felt almost palpable. Was she merely a spectator, or was she destined to connect deeper with the shadows that lingered here? After the service, Emma wandered among the graves, reading the names etched into stone. Each one felt like a fragment of her own heart, each soldier a distant echo of Daniel's bravery. As she knelt beside her ancestor's grave, the chill of the earth seeped into her bones. "I am here to honor you," she whispered, her breath visible in the frosty air. "I want to understand what you went through. I want to know you." As if summoned by her words, a sudden gust of wind swept through the cemetery, and she could have sworn she heard her name soft, yet resolute, drifting through the air like petals on a breeze. Startled, she glanced around but found no one nearby. Suddenly, her surroundings shifted. The solemn silence of the cemetery melted into the chaotic sounds of war. The crisp air thickened into something electric, the whispers in the wind transforming into distant shouts of command, the clatter of boots against snow, and the intermittent crack of gunfire echoing in the distance. Before she fully comprehended what was happening, Emma found herself enveloped in visioned battlefield materialized around her. She stood amid a swirling snowstorm, surrounded by men clad in thick, olive-green uniforms, faces set in grim determination. They huddled together near a frozen trench, eyes scanning the gusty winds. Emma felt the energy of a deep-seated duty coursing through her veins. As she pressed deeper into the scene, she recognized someone among them. It was Daniel, her ancestor. He appeared younger than the photo she had cherished, a boy alive with the ferocity of youth and the heavy burden of a soldier's responsibility. He stood shoulder to shoulder with his comrades, his expression one of unwavering resolve even as the uncertainty and fear loomed over them like a dark tide. "Hold the line," he shouted, his voice ringing true above the ferocity of the storm. Emma's heart raced as she watched him move with a fierce cadence, the spirit of leadership emanating from him. For the next moments, time ceased to exist, and she was merely an observer, swept up in this vivid reenactment of history unfolding around her. The scene bathed her in emotional currents, images of fallen comrades, moments of sheer terror mingled with bursts of camaraderie. She saw Daniel laughing over a shared meal, comforting another soldier with a gentle pat on the back, and then a horror-stricken moment as an explosion rocked the vicinity, throwing soldiers to the ground and filling the air with acrid smoke. Overwhelmed by emotions, Emma stepped closer to Daniel, yearning to make contact, to breach the invisible wall that separated the living from the dead. Just as she reached out, the vision shifted. Once more she found herself standing beside him in a darkened forest, far from the chaos of the battlefield. The shadows danced ominously, and an eerie chill filled the air. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, his voice suddenly soft yet piercing, filled with an otherworldly awareness. As he turned, his eyes met hers, reflecting a depth of sorrow and understanding that spilled beyond his years. Emma was struck by the pain within them. It mirrored her own grief. "Emma," she whispered, barely able to contain the flood of emotion as she stepped closer. "I am your great-granddaughter. I've come to honor you and learn about your sacrifice." Daniel's expression softened, the grim lines of battle etched upon his face easing into a gentle recognition. The moment lingered in the ethereal space, the tumult of war behind them momentarily silenced. "You must let them know," he said solemnly, his eyes pleading. "Our stories deserve to be shared." They are the fabric of who you are. Tears brimmed in Emma's eyes as she realized the weight of his request. It transcended mere history. It was a legacy of resilience through blood and sacrifice carried through generations. I promise, she vowed, the sincerity in her voice echoing through the spectral landscape. I will tell your stories. I'll honor what you've done. In that moment, a soft glow enveloped them, as if the very essence of the past embraced their connection. Time felt suspended, and suddenly Emma was flooded with visions, moments not just limited to Daniel, but inclusive of many soldiers, each one representing a thread in the tapestry of sacrifice. She watched as each of them emerged from the fog of memory, their faces brightening, recounting their last liberating breaths and the resolute determination etched in their souls. The forest faded, replaced by the serene atmosphere of the cemetery once more. Emma stood, heart pounding, the cool air returning as reality settled upon her like a soft blanket. The bond forged was tangible, and a profound sense of purpose coursed through her. She felt an urgent need to carry their legacies forward, to recount their tales not just as echoes of the past, but as a guiding light for the future. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows against the gravestones, Emma found herself standing before Daniel's grave again. This time her heart felt lighter, filled with both pride and sorrow. In an emotional moment, she laid her locket against the cold granite, an offering to her ancestor, a promise to honor their sacrifices with truth and reverence. As the stars began to twinkle against the deepening night, Emma walked away from the cemetery with new resolve. Each step she took resonated with the weight of the past that was no longer a mere collection of stories, but a living legacy that intertwined with her own journey. She would carry their memories forward, share their courage, and advocate for a cause that transcended the mortal realm. No longer burdened by grief alone, she felt empowered to become a voice for the fallen, honoring her family's history with every word she shared. As she bid farewell to the haunting beauty of the Ardennes, she realized that mortality was not an ending, but an inheritance, a gift that compelled her to tell their stories. The highway stretched before her, leading away from the ghosts of yesteryears, yet every heartbeat echoed the promise she made. The legacy of sacrifice lived on, and Emma was determined to weave that legacy into the fabric of tomorrow. With the promise of connection still glowing within her, we refocus our journey back to the winter of 1944, where amidst the fleeting moments of valor and turmoil, another soldier's fate battles against the tides of despair, encapsulating the chaos that would forever imprint their essence on the heart of Ardennes. As the frost-covered expanse of the Ardennes turns shadowy at dusk, the tales of bravery and loss continue to reverberate through the fabric of time. Each story we have explored within these hallowed grounds, whether from the perspective of a determined investigator, a disoriented soldier in the throes of battle, a grieving villager, or a descendant, reconnecting with their ancestry illuminates the enduring ties that bind us to our collective past. The spectral echoes of those who once walked these lands remind us that their sacrifices are intricately woven into the very essence of our shared humanity. Throughout the frozen patrol of Ardennes, the struggles of individuals confronted not only the external realities of war, but also the internal battles of grief, remembrance, and acceptance. The chilling encounters with the frozen patrol, the haunting visions of Private Eddie Miller, and the poignant reflections of Anak and Emma serve to illustrate a unifying truth. Loss reverberates across generations and cultures, creating an indelible mark upon the souls left behind. These narratives connect us to the memories of fallen heroes and compassionate souls who fought and bled for freedom. Each spectral visitation is a reminder that we are never alone in our grief. Rather, it binds us to those who came before. The significance of acknowledging the past cannot be overstated. As we recount the stories of those who sacrificed their lives in the harsh winters of the Ardennes, we also unearth the lessons entwined with their legacies. They remind us of the values of courage, integrity, and the enduring power of human connection even in the face of unspeakable loss. By remembering those who have walked before us, we learn to navigate our own lives with empathy and resilience, honoring the scars of history while forging a path toward a brighter future. As we close the chapter on this journey through the spectral echoes of the Ardennes, we invite you, our dear listeners, to reflect on the stories shared. Let them resonate within you and inspire thoughtful conversations about legacy, remembrance, and the necessity of preserving the narratives of those who paved the way before us. Join us as we continue to explore the ghosts of battles fought in this land and beyond, unveiling the rich tapestry their stories weave into our understanding of identity and shared experience. We encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to Ghost Stories of the Battles, so that together, we may honor the memories of the fallen and remind ourselves that while their stories may linger as whispers in the wind, they remain a vital part of who we are today. By shedding light on these histories, we keep the legacy of courage and sacrifice alive, ensuring that the spirits of the Ardennes, and indeed all battlefields, are never forgotten. Let us carry forward their stories, honoring their sacrifices by weaving their lessons into the fabric of our present and future.